What's up, guys? Brady Figuel here, coming at you with another discography ranking. Today we're talking about Thrice in preparation for their upcoming album Horizons West that drops 1 week from Friday, October 3rd, I think. This, unlike some other discography rankings I've done recently that were a lot of work, was a very easy discography ranking for me to prepare for because, for one, I was already familiar with all these records, so I didn't really have to go back and familiarize myself more with any of them. And Thrice, for the last 9 years now, when I discovered them, has evolved into becoming one of my absolute favorite bands, period. Like, in the top 5, easy. I think there's no possible way that any two lists, as far as how their discography is ranked, can possibly look the same. So as a result, I'm sure there's going to be lots of disagreement on mine, as well as probably any other video that does this. So because of that, please comment below if you're a Thrice fan. Comment below how you would rank their albums, and let's talk about them even more. I did, for this video, mostly just to give myself a little less work to do, combine all 4 parts of the Alchemy Index into one category here. So there's going to be 10 spots on this list, but you'll see when I talk about the Alchemy Index itself in this video, I'll kind of have reasons to explain why I wanted to do that regardless. And yeah, without wasting any more time, let's get right into it with my number 10 pick, which is the band's debut, Identity Crisis. The main reason this album is at the bottom is not because I think it's bad, it's more just because the style this record goes for is, for one, just arguably the most one-dimensional style Thrice has gone for in any of their albums. But in general, this emo-leaning, straight-up post-hardcore sound that this album pretty much fully shoots for just doesn't really do it for me personally. Aside from that, I do think some filler tracks creep in a little bit towards the end, like Unquestioned Answers and TNC. They don't really feel like they add anything to the album at this point as a result of the bulk of it just overall feeling kind of samey. Dustin's vocals on here are definitely the most unrefined out of all of Thrice's releases, which makes sense because it's their debut. But again, I don't think this album's bad. There's still some cool stuff on here, like the thrash metal influence in certain songs on here, like A Torch to End All Torches, most notably. I think that makes this album overall still more interesting than maybe some of Thrice's peers. It's not bad, just not really for me at the end of the day. But that being said, top 3 tracks I'll give to A Torch to End All Torches, In Your Hands, and Under Par. And now probably my most predictable spot on this list after what I just said, The Illusion of Safety at number 9. I know this is a very beloved album for a majority of Thrice fans, but it's kind of the same idea here in a sense that it does go for the most part that emo post-hardcore sound for the bulk of the album, but it's definitely an improvement off of Identity Crisis. It does incorporate some more creative elements. Like, you do hear elements of what Thrice's sound would become in the future on songs like Trust, which has more of like that kind of low-key, calm intro that leads into some mid-tempo dissonance. The song does a better job of all the other tracks on here of having those up and down dynamics and having some more quiet, somber parts. Some of the riffing on tracks like See You in the Shallows and To Awake and Avenge the Dead bring in somewhat of like a Swedish melodeath flair, which I like hearing. Subtle Dagger has that too. It's got those double bass bursts too that I think are fun, and this exotic solo later on. But at the same time, it is still a little bit stylistically one-dimensional. It still goes for that overall sound and style that doesn't do a whole lot for me. So again, it's just more about taking context into account more than anything. But once again, not a bad album by any means. Top 2 tracks I'm going to give to Subtle Dagger, Where Idols Once Stood, and Trust. Number 8, I got the Alchemy Index. If you're not familiar, essentially the concept behind the Alchemy Index is that there's 4 EPs, each of which represent an element, one of the 4 elements: air, fire, earth, and water. And each of those EPs also goes for a specific style that pretty much is supposed to represent the theme of the EP. But this format is, to me, kind of what holds this album back. The way they grouped together all the uniform styles into big bodies of work like that are so samey on purpose, that's kind of exactly what happens. The album feels a bit disjointed, and when you're listening to these parts song after song, certain sounds and certain styles kind of get old when you're kind of listening to all these songs in a row that go for that exact style. What I think they should have done is just make one album like this. Take the best songs out of all 4 EPs and put it in like a 10, 11, 12 track album, because then you have an album with, for one, a lot of diversity. but it also would have made it a more smooth, well-rounded listen that doesn't feel like 4 distinct sounds and 4 distinct EPs, literally, forced together into one project. It's a little bit disjointing for me listening to it all the way through. So because I had that thought, I actually went out of my way to make a Spotify playlist as to how I would have presented this album. It's a 12-track album with songs from all of the EPs combined, which I will link in the description if anybody is curious to listen to it. For me, the Fire EP is by far the most enjoyable part of this 4 EP collection. So if you look at the playlist, you'll see that the entire Fire EP is on there, and then the other 6 songs are spread out amongst the other 3 EPs. But, I mean, you get the groovy track, The Arsonist, on there, which is just so fucking catchy. Fire Breather is just this expansive, straight-up hard rock song with just layers of atmosphere on it. Backdraft is full of up and down dynamics between its more quiet, laid-back parts and its loud and aggressive sections. And the Flame Deluge is like this really atmospheric, key-driven song with these staticky screams kind of popping in. This is a really unique sounding song in general. And to me, just on the rest of the stuff on here that isn't on the Fire EP, it always kind of feels like something's missing for me. Like, these are all songs that I feel like could add a lot to an album in small doses. But again, when you're hit with all of these ideas all at once like that, it just doesn't work for me at the end of the day. But again, there's nothing on any of these 2 albums that I would consider bad. It's more just the presentation that takes away for me. And now that I have this playlist, I'll probably be listening to that playlist in particular way more than any of these albums, just how they're presented. Top 3 tracks: Fire Breather, The Messenger, and Digital Sea. Number 7 is Visu. This is another record that really shows Thrice's musical evolution album to album, just being their 4th record. As a result, this album just feels like there were a lot less rules put on it. It's less rigid and a lot more fluid, just in how it sounds a bit more natural. It doesn't sound like the band was pigeonholing their sound into this one particular lane. Rather, it sounds like it's going on just this free path and pulling in a bunch of different influences that it passes. It's a very experimental record. That's one of the best ways I could put it, even to this day in Thrice's catalog. Yet you still have a track like Image of the Invisible, which was a great single and a really good opener to this album as well. It's really catchy. It's very infectious in a way that the way Dustin delivers the cadence, Image of the Invisible, as many times as it is repeated, it never quite gets old just because of how catchy it is and just that cadence is so addicting. Songs like Music Box and Hold Fast Hope and the chorus of Between the End and Where We Lie are all songs that bring in some more of those odd time qualities, which will become a recurring theme throughout Thrice's future releases. It also dips its toes the most at that point in Thrice's career into straight-up melodic and stripped-back music. This is also, to me, to my ears, the first notable and audible jump in Dustin's vocal performances. This album doesn't feel quite confident in its style that it goes for. You could tell that this was the band kind of trying things. Something to me that's evident of that is that there is somewhat of an excessive use, formula-wise, of having these melodic intros, whether they end up driving the song or kicking into more aggressive music. All of these kind of melodic intros that take up these songs make it maybe a little bit formulaic, and like that was a clear starting point for the band to kind of build off of. But there's still some killer stuff on here, like I said. Top 2 tracks I'll give to Image of the Invisible, Music Box, and Atlantic. Coming in at number 6, I'm giving to Major Minor. This is one record that I will say Thrice do sound more confident on. It takes on a bit more streamlined influences than the emo post-hardcore stuff or the experimental stuff, taking mostly from grunge, a little classic rock, a little modern alternative rock. Like, I even hear on a track like Listen Through Me with those with that guitar tone that has all that reverb on it, it reminds me of like the song Don't Fear the Reaper. There's some kind of subtle blues influences that appear in small doses throughout this record. And while Thrice does all these styles really well, like this is still an album I enjoy, it just to me is it's clearly one of the more one-dimensional releases that Thrice has put out, which might give it this spot. But like I still think there's some killer stuff on here. The opener, Yellow Belly, is just super catchy the entire time. It's got that really infectious riff. Call It in the Air maintains like this kind of tense drama the entire song that makes it especially addicting for me. Words on the Water has those somber, clean guitars in the intro that they sound like they are groaning. I love the closer Disarmed. It has a really cool somber chorus that I can identify with. It's just, yet again, one of the more one-dimensional Thrice albums, but I still think it's great. Top 3 tracks, 3 of the ones I just talked about. Call It in the Air, Worlds in the Water, and Disarmed. Number 5, I'm giving To Be Everywhere Is to Be Nowhere. This is the album that they came back with in 2016 after their hiatus. This is the album that got me into the band. And I think it says a lot that despite this album being at the number 5 spot on here, I literally did a favorite albums video for it. So I won't spend too much time on this one. If you want to hear more of my extended thoughts on this record, definitely check out that video. I'll make sure to leave it in the suggestion cards. But off the top of my head, a couple things that really make this album unique to me are, for one, the lyrics. They take on more specific narrative-driven themes, oftentimes influenced by things like politics. Like Death from Above is this chilling song from the first-person point of view of a drone operator who is literally talking about how he never knows who he's killing with these missiles that he's dropping, and how he's trying to convince himself almost that the targets on his screen aren't people, they're just targets on a screen. It's a chilling song, and you have other tracks on here like Black Honey, which is a great metaphorical take on some U.S. foreign policy type stuff. The closer, Salt and Shadow, is absolutely gorgeous. The opener, Hurricane, is another great one with some just really groaning, melancholy sounding melodies. Long Defeat is amazing. It's going to be really hard to name top 3 tracks for this record. But again, check out that video. I will go much more in depth into this album in that video than I will here. Top 3 tracks I'll give to Long Defeat, Hurricane, and Salt and Shadow. Number 4 is Horizons East, their last album, and the first part of the Horizons series, I guess, part 2 of which drops a week from Friday. This album is amazing. It has Dustin's, hands down, best vocal performance to date. It's a very logical successor to Palms, the album that followed up, amplifying some of those more of those influences like the blues a little bit, some more of the jazz influence on tracks like Still Life and Dandelion Wine and Northern Lights, most notably with those pianos. Scavengers and Robot Soft Exorcism are both songs that impeccably use odd time signatures to the point where you can't even tell that it's a normally timed song because of just how smooth it sounds. The closer, Unit of East, is absolutely gorgeous. It is a song that throughout the years has especially excelled as kind of a studying soundtrack for me when I have to study for whatever classwork I've done. It's got the straightforward tracks like Buried in the Sun and The Dreamer. You got Somerset Fire to the Rain, which pretty much does everything on this album combined. Some beautiful melodies in that track. The band makes amazing use of some outside unconventional instrumentation on the opener, Colors of the Sky. So yeah, amazing record. At this point, I will have very little negative to say about any of these next few albums. I think the only drawback this album has for me is that the 2 straightforward tracks, like I mentioned, Buried in the Sun and The Dreamer, do jump out as kind of the weak links of this album, but even those songs I still like. Top 3 tracks, however, I'll give to Somerset Fire to the Rain, Northern Lights, and Still Life. Number 3, which might get some of you fired up, The Artist in the Ambulance, their 3rd album, their breakout album. To this day, probably their most beloved album. And don't get me wrong, like, you heard my criticisms for the first 2 records. Like, this one, however, already is a huge jump in quality and musicianship from those first 2 records. I think even to this day it has Thrice's best riffing overall on any of their records. The band does incorporate a lot more overall emotion into these songs. The band on this record does sound like they've evolved past a lot of those emo influences, even though they do kind of show up on a song like the title track, which is like, I think their biggest song ever. You have songs like Silhouette, which is an absolute ripper. I actually did a full band cover of it a few years ago that I should probably upload, not gonna lie. Songs like Paper Tigers and Under a Killing Moon bring in some reminiscent of the time metalcore influence. Like, you listen to parts of those songs and the structures and the riffing style, and it's very similar to what a band like Killswitch Engage was doing around that time period too. The Melting Point of Wax is a song that does kind of, again, have remnants of that emo influence, but it's made a lot more interesting due to, again, the melodies themselves, the use of odd time signatures yet again. This is just a much more dynamic and diverse sound for Thrice, it being their 3rd album compared to those first 2. Only thing to me that holds it back is that the production and Dustin's vocals are still a little bit unrefined sounding to me. But shout out to the re-recorded version that they dropped a couple years ago. Like, that's maybe the only instance I could think of where a band actually, like, re-records one of their most beloved albums, and it actually sounds better than the original, like, from a production point especially. but that's just the same album re-recorded. So I'm not going to give that its own spot. So this is still the album that gets on the list. So this is still the album I'm talking about. But yeah, I love this album. Top 3 tracks I'll give to Silhouette, Cold Cash and Colder Hearts, and Under a Killing Moon. Number 2 is Beggars. Let me get this out right away. This album is a grower. Overall, it's a very stripped back record. The band spends little time on here trying to be heavy or aggressive. A lot of these tracks take on these somber, mournful type of melodies that, again, are perfect for the setting of a gloomy, rainy day. These are songs that you put them on and they take you away. That's the best that's the best way I can describe it. There's so much amazing shit on here. I mean, the track Circles, with its delicate vocals and clean guitar melodies, almost bring Deftones to mind a little bit for me. The track Double Speak is phenomenal. It has this urban, jazzy piano lead that carries most of the song. That's really, really just fun to listen to. That's one of those songs where, to me, I listen to it and it makes me envision, like, walking down an urban city street at night with the lights and people playing music on the streets. The Great Exchange is a track that has like this watery, shipwrecked vibe, which is appropriate given the lyrics. And it's almost dreamy in that sense, and it takes on somewhat of like a tropical-esque feel to me. Wooden Wire is a track that has these chilling lyrics about a man being imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, and the music really matches that well with its mournful piano melodies. It also has those distortion effects that give the song somewhat of even like a psychedelic vibe at times. I love all the songs on this record. Literally, the one little tiny thing that takes back from the listening experience of this record for me is that the track In Exile has a bunch of whoa-whoa vocals at the end, which just, that's never really a thing that works for me. It always comes off a little bit cheap. Thrice has used them well elsewhere, but on this track, they feel like a little bit too like they're trying to drive this song. And when whoa-whoas feel like they're driving the song, for me, it takes back a little bit. Aside from that, this album is flawless. Top 3 tracks go to Circles, Double Speak, and Wooden Wire. And my favorite Thrice album is Palms. This is a beautiful album. That's the best way I can describe it. This album is fucking beautiful. Every song on this record is unique, packed with tons of emotion, interesting lyrics. Whether they're speaking politically on tracks like Only Us and Blood on Blood, or if they're taking on more of an intimate setting like on My Soul, which is a strong contender for my favorite song this band ever put out, where Dustin gives maybe his most soulful vocal performance to this date. The track Just Breathe is just pure serenity. Like, this is a song that you can listen to and literally meditate to just because of its lyrics and how it sounds. And same goes for the closer Beyond the Pine, which takes on more of like an escapist point of view that is very, very relatable to someone like me who lives in the fucking Chicago suburbs. Everything Belongs is this gorgeous crescendoing piano ballad. You got a little bit of gospel creeping in on the dark. You got some subtle Western influences in the melodies in the song The Grave. A Branch in the River is this tense song that to me is more of a symbol for mental illness, anxiety, depression, things like that. And the song does a great job of building that tension, and it feels especially appropriate and relatable. Blood on Blood has a harp solo in the middle that is absolutely chilling. Just, this album is special, man. That's the best way I could put it. This is an album that not only is my favorite Thrice album, but I think can confidently sit in, at the bare minimum, top 5 album ever for me. And like I said earlier about To Be Everywhere, To Be Nowhere, I did a favorite albums video for this one, which again, I'll link in the suggestion card. So if you want to hear me nerd out about this record for even more time, then yeah, I recommend checking that video out. Top 3 tracks, all of them, but if you forced my head and made me pick, I would give it to My Soul, Beyond the Pines, and Just Breathe. So yeah, that's how I would rank all of Thrice's albums. Once again, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button to stay tuned for when I will review Horizons West after it drops. And remember to leave your list in the comments below. I feel like Thrice is going to have so many different combinations of lists, and this is just a band that is so fun to talk about. So please do comment below. Once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.